All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're going to be checking out this short story.
Okay.
Called We Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers.
Mild drinker.
Yeah, it's set in the Philippines just after World War II.
Oh, interesting.
When, there were American GIs kind of all over the place.
Right.
And it's about this encounter between a Filipino farmer and one of these GIs, a guy named Joe. And their ideas about drinking and maybe even culture in general are going to clash in a pretty funny way.
It's always interesting to see those cultural clashes and how they play out.
Especially when it comes to something like chicken.
Absolutely, because every culture has its own sort of relationship with alcohol, right?
Exactly.
And it's so fascinating to see how those different perspectives can sometimes lead to these misunderstandings or these really funny situations.
Well, I think this story definitely has both.
All right, well, I'm ready to dive in. What happened?
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
You got this Filipino farmer. He's out in his rice field.
Okay.
Working alongside his carabao, Datu.
A carabao.
Yeah. And the story makes a point of telling us he's barefoot, wearing traditional clothing.
Got it.
Bolo knife at his side really wants us to see him as this...
Part of the,
part of this traditional way of life.
That traditional way of life.
Right. And the carabao, Datu, isn't just some pet. He's essential to how the farmer works and lives.
Oh, I see. So it's like a working animal.
Exactly. And they need, special care like mud baths to stay cool.
Oh, that makes sense.
So into this picture walks Joe, the American GI.
Okay.
And right away, it's obvious they're from different worlds.
Yeah, just from the setting alone.
Right. So Joe, he calls the farmer, get this, my little brown brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not exactly the most
sensitive greeting, especially for that time period.
Right. And then Joe, he just assumes this farmer can point him in the direction of some whiskey.
He just assumes that he'd know where to get it.
Yeah. Like everyone drinks whiskey. Right.
Right. Like it's just a given.
Exactly. And that assumption, it really is at the heart of this story.
Yeah. It's like he's projecting his own cultural norms onto this farmer without even realizing it.
Exactly. And it's going to lead to some
interesting interactions, I bet.
Some interesting interactions, yeah. So Joe, being Joe, offers the farmer a drink.
Oh, okay.
But the farmer, he politely refuses, saying,
let me guess. We Filipinos are mild drinkers.
You got it. We Filipinos are mild drinkers.
I knew it. That line, it's almost like it becomes this central theme that runs through the whole story.
Totally. It seems simple on the surface.
Right.
But it sets up all these events that are going to challenge Joe's ideas about drinking.
And about Filipinos in general, I'm sure.
And about Filipinos in general.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, he's intrigued, obviously.
Of course, who wouldn't be?
He seems like the kind of guy who loves to try new drinks.
Right, the adventurous type.
So he asks the farmer what he drinks. That's when the farmer introduces him to lambanog.
Lambanog.
Yeah, it's like a local drink made from coconut sap.
Okay, I've never heard of that one.
And, well, naturally, Joe wants to give it a shot.
Of course. He's got to try it now.
So they head to the farmer's nipa hut.
A nipa hut?
Yeah, it's like the simple, traditional Filipino house.
Oh, okay.
And before they even start drinking, the farmer, he pours a little bit of the lambanog on the floor.
Why does he do that?
Well, he explains it's an offering to the earth.
Interesting.
A way of showing respect.
I see.
It's like this small detail. But it tells us so much about Filipino culture and their connection to nature.
Yeah, it's like a little window into their values and beliefs.
It reminds me of how the story describes the coconut tree.
Oh, right.
It says it...
what does it say?
It says it starts up to the sky, but then its leaves sway down the earth, as if remembering the land that gave it birth.
Beautiful imagery.
And it goes on to say, it does not forget the soil that gave it life.
Wow, that's really powerful. And it connects so perfectly with the farmer's actions. It's like they're acknowledging the source of their sustenance, the land that provides for them.
And it's not just about the environment.
I bet it goes deeper than that.
Yeah, it connects to this deeper belief system where nature is seen as alive, spiritual even.
That makes sense.
Something Joe, with his background, wouldn't necessarily understand.
Yeah, it's a completely different worldview.
Okay, so finally, they're ready to drink.
All right, here you go.
The farmer mixes the lambanog with some of Joe's whiskey.
Oh, he mixes them.
Yeah, Joe takes a big gulp and, well, let's just say he was not expecting that.
What happens? What happens?
Well, the story describes his reaction in this, really exaggerated way.
Okay.
His eyes are bulging.
Oh, no.
He's grabbing his throat.
Oh, wow.
Sweating like crazy.
Sounds like this lambanog especially mixed with whiskey,
Right.
is a lot stronger than he thought.
It's clear this stuff is way stronger than Joe thought it would be.
So maybe Filipinos are mild drinkers,
Yeah.
but their drinks sure aren't.
Exactly. But Joe, even though he's clearly in pain,
He's tough. Huh?
wants to be a good sport. So he keeps drinking.
Oh no, he keeps going.
He has a second drink,
Oh my goodness.
and then a third.
A third each time.
Each time it gets worse.
Oh, it gets worse. His bridge work starts coming loose.
No way.
A moth dies from the fumes.
That's how strong it is.
And he even thinks he swallowed his own tongue. It's like a cartoon.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
But it says something about Joe, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, he's determined to keep up with the farmer, even if it means feeling terrible.
Yeah.
It shows how much he wants to connect, even though he's totally botching this whole cultural exchange. So what happens next? Does he make it through all 3 drinks?
Well, no, not exactly. Joe ends up, passing out.
Oh, no, I should have seen that coming.
The farmer, being the kind soul that he is,
Okay.
puts Joe on the back of his carabao, Datu, on the back of the carabao.
Yeah, it takes him back to the barracks.
Wow, he takes care of him.
But here's the twist. As the farmer's leaving,
Okay.
one of Joe's buddies offers him a beer.
Oh, this is great.
And the farmer says, no thanks.
I bet I know what he says next.
What's that?
We Filipinos are mild drinkers.
You got it. We Filipinos are mild drinkers.
That's perfect. That ending it leaves you wondering so much.
I know, right? It makes you think, was the farmer being clever? Like, did he know what would happen to Joe? Or
Right.
did he totally misjudge how strong that lambanog would be mixed with the whiskey?
Or maybe a little bit of both.
Like, what was the farmer really thinking? We're left wondering.
Exactly. And that's what makes it such a great story. Yeah, it really makes you think about how we see other cultures, you know?
It's like, was he playing a joke on Joe or just being good host?
Right. I mean, was it intentional?
Yeah.
That's what I love about the story. It gives us these 2 different cultures, these 2 totally different ways of seeing the world. And it lets us kind of decide how to interpret it all.
We get to decide for ourselves.
Yeah, maybe the farmer, had a little mischievous side to him.
Right.
Or maybe he just genuinely didn't realize how strong that stuff was going to be.
I mean, what's mild to one person
Right.
could be, whoa, hold on, to someone else.
Exactly. And that's such a great point. It highlights how even when people have good intentions, things can get totally lost in translation.
Especially when cultures collide.
Especially when cultures collide. This whole idea of different perspectives, though,
Yeah.
it's woven throughout the entire story.
Sure.
Like, remember when they talk about trees?
Oh, yeah, with the coconut tree and the pine tree.
Yes. The former talks about how the coconut tree starts up to the sky, but then its leaves sway down the earth as if remembering the land that gave it birth.
It does not forget the soil that gave it life.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's such a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really shows that deep connection between Filipinos and their land, their heritage.
Their roots.
Their roots, exactly. Like, no matter how high they reach, how much they grow, they never forget where they came from.
And then you have Joe talking about the pine tree, how it's tall and stately and symbolizes America,
Yeah, and it's interesting how they're both talking about trees.
but seeing him in totally different ways.
Completely different ways. The pine, shooting straight up, it represents ambition, progress,
Yeah.
kind of how Americans saw themselves at the time.
And the coconut tree, bending back down, shows that humility, that respect for nature.
It's this beautiful way to demonstrate how different cultures find meaning in the natural world
For sure.
and how those meanings can be so different, sometimes completely opposite.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And that difference, it goes way beyond just trees,
Oh, definitely.
It's in how they approach drinking, how they treat each other, even how they understand the world around them.
It's like, how much does where we come from shape how we see everything?
Right. Even something as simple as having a drink. It makes you think about all the assumptions we make without even realizing it.
Especially when we meet people from different backgrounds.
It reminds us to be curious, to ask questions,
Right?
to be open to the idea that, our way of seeing things isn't the only way.
Yeah.
Instead of judging, maybe we should try to understand where the other person is coming from.
Because who knows, right?
Yeah,
Maybe we'll learn something new about ourselves and the world.
absolutely. Although, word to the wise, if someone offers you a drink made from coconut sap,
Yeah.
maybe take it slow.
Probably good advice.
I think the biggest takeaway from this story, though,
Okay.
is that even when things get uncomfortable, even when they're hilarious, those moments can actually bring people from different cultures closer.
Closer together.
Yeah. It's like, even if we don't always understand each other perfectly,
Right.
we can still find a way to connect, to laugh together, and maybe even learn a thing or two along the way.
That connection.
Yeah, that connection.
That willingness to kind of step outside of our own little bubbles.
Exactly.
That's what helps us break down those barriers and see each other as, well, human.
As human beings, exactly. That's what it's all about.
It's like that saying, right? Walk a mile in someone else's shoes.
Yeah, totally.
This story makes you really want to see things from both sides, from the farmer's point of view and Joe's.
And that's what makes it so thought-provoking, I should say.
Yeah.
It doesn't wrap everything up neatly. It doesn't give us easy answers.
Leaves you hanging a little.
It does. It leaves us wondering, what did that whole experience mean for both of them?
Did it change them at all?
Did they actually learn anything from each other? I mean, I would love to know what Joe thought about it all afterward.
After he sobered up, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Once the lambanog fog had cleared, so to speak.
Right.
Did he just kind of brush it off as one crazy night?
Just a funny story to tell his buddies.
Right. Or did it actually shift his perspective on, Filipinos, or even on his own assumptions about the world?
It's like the story throws all that out there.
Yeah.
But doesn't give us any answers.
And that's what makes it stick with you, It's what keeps you thinking long after you've finished reading it.
That's true. This deep dive, it's really been about more than just this funny little encounter, right?
No, absolutely.
It feels like it's about how we approach any new experience, anytime we come up against something that's different.
It's like we Filipinos are mild drinkers. It becomes this metaphor for how we handle those differences.
Whether it's cultural differences
Right.
or just anything that challenges our own way of seeing things.
Exactly. It's about being open to new perspectives, even if they make us a little uncomfortable.
So as you go about your day, dear listener, think about those moments,
Okay.
when you encounter something outside your comfort zone. Maybe it's a new food, a different way of thinking, or even just someone with a background different from your own.
Right.
Remember this story. Remember to be curious.
Yeah, be curious.
Be respectful, and hey, maybe even have a little sense of humor about it all.
Because who knows, right? You might discover something wonderful, something that completely changes how you see the world.
And the people in it.
That's what makes life so fascinating, isn't it? The constant opportunity for growth and discovery.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into We Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers.
I really enjoyed this one.
Me too. Me too. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and hey, maybe even try a new drink every now and then.
Just maybe not lambanog mixed with whiskey.
Probably a good call.